heard from Life des Königs. German, Deutsche Sprichwort. Punctuality is very German. All right, I am Adam Levine from Washingtonia. We just finished a wonderful workshop with Mikey Leggett on the button box, and we are now going to another workshop with our two fantastic bell ringers, Kuhglocken, or sometimes called Schellen. You'll hear that word Schellen. Last night we heard it, Schellen, or Kuhglocken. These ladies are experts from Washingtonia on the bells, and they're going to tell you all the tricks that you need to know. I'd like to introduce my dear friends and colleagues. We're all German teachers, by the way, all three of us. And we've known each other for a very long time. Melissa and Kristin from Washingtonia. Take it away, ladies.
First of all, I want to say I made a copy to make copies, and then the business center is closed until further notice. So what we did is a couple of our friends out here have a QR code. I also posted the link to the handout that I created on our Facebook site. So if you are following all the Facebook stuff, just look for Washingtonia, and the link is up there. And this will give you just basically bullets of some of the stuff we're going to talk about. So first, let's see. I'll tell you a little bit. So I've been playing bells. I don't even know how many years I've been playing bells. 10 years, maybe? At least. If anybody knows Betty Heyman, she taught me everything that I know very precisely. Her name is still on our bell cases. And then there were two of us that learned, and then over time I have had a second ringer come in, and we have people fill in, so we have a wide variety, and it's great because there's numbers, a lot of the parts are easy, so you get somebody newish in there, and as long as you have the main part being somebody who kind of knows what they're doing, it's easy to get somebody pulled in. So we're going to talk to you guys right now. Please do.
And not to call her out, but last night if you saw us at the Heimatabend, Jessie played with me, and Jessie learned that number 3 months ago.
Yeah, not even 2.
We performed it once, and so that was our first time performing it all together, not in a rehearsal. So just like to show you the ease at which you can throw the numbers together, right? With our tips and tricks, hopefully today you will feel confident in throwing a bell number together and play them, without too much stress. So like Jessie did fantastic last night. We were working together so nicely. I think she looked like an old-time pro. I mean, she's young, so she doesn't look that old, but you know what I'm saying. But yeah, we're hopeful today that we can give you that confidence and those tricks.
Well, let me ask first, how many of you guys have bells? Okay, then how many of you guys actually play the bells? Okay, we got you. So what we wanted to do is kind of walk you through first of but it's like our little lesson plan. But how we take care of our bells, how we handle our bells. You'll see we have our big giant cases from God knows what decade. And how we take care of them in between, and then kind of where you start if you find a number, how you plan it, how you put it together, and then kind of the tips of the actual bell ringers and how you're putting it all together, and then maybe a couple finishing touches once you get the notes of how you can really make it a nice, beautiful piece.
Yeah, a little flourish.
Oh, we're going to start, right?
Oh yeah, we're going to play a number if we can
see.
Mikey.
Yes.
Would you mind, sir?
You probably
I know, so take a sip of water.
You know he's great.
He's like running the marathon this weekend.
He knew. But in this one, we just call this one Lock and Echo. And it's one of our simpler pieces. This is the first piece I ever learned when Betty taught me. This was my starter. So, yes. So, we go both times together, yes. Yes, I believe so. Okay. And you'll notice, by the way, we're playing, this is one we play one set of bells between the two of us.
So you're going to see we're going to share some bells in here.
And each of them has, on the little Betty Heyman label that's on there, it has, one are the lines and one is the dots. And if you look at the top of the bells, one has lines and one has dots. So, and we've learned at this point, the dots are the better tuned of the two bells. So whoever's playing the more main part gets the dots.
May I?
Please.
We also made sure to label our cases with top versus bottom, so that when you open them up, your bells don't all fall.
Well, you actually cannot open it because one of our men tried to do it.
Oh, perfect. Even better.
You cannot open it when the bottom is on the top. But this lets you know why you can't get the case open. So that's kind of how we do it. Now, as far as taking care of them, I mean, they're instruments, so they do get out of tune. Now, two things that are huge things that will get out of tune. One, obviously, dropping them on the floor will get them out of tune. So suddenly, what is, oh, by the way, let's grab this part. We have our cheat sheet, all of them are labeled, so that when we set up our bells, we know which one is which. And you know, you have the big D's and the little D's, so with a circle.
There's a little teeny one.
Little tiny D's have a circle, so you know, as a group, whatever else you have, just create a system for yourself. So it's easy. The nice thing about this is when we go to shows, you know, we don't have to set it all up because it's a real simple system. So everybody who's pitching in to set up for the show can come and get our bells out. They don't know how to set up the formations or anything, but they'll come out, they'll get them all out and lay them out in front like this for us. And then we just come in and set them up. So that way you get everybody involved in it. It's a real simple process.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that, lowercase, uppercase, and so on. So we show you, for example, obviously that's our low D. It's the capital. We have the little guy, and then here's the circle. So we have all three D's labeled that way, and they're like that. We'll show you in our handout. There's a picture of a card that there has what the layout looks like on our table. All these sets out here, they hide a multitude of sins, just so you know. Like our cards.
And they look so pretty.
It does.
And honestly, the audience has no idea. They come behind and they're like, oh, look at that, look at you guys, and the letters on the bells. And the other thing is heat. Of course, you know, we had shows out when we do August-Toberfest, which is done, we've done it in August. It gets real hot and that direct sun screws it up. So you go to play and it's like, oh, no, that's not how it's supposed to sound.
Yeah, we have, for example, these are both low E, or not low E, small E, high E. So, unfortunately, one of them has been dropped. The line is supposed to be the worser one, but it's no longer. This is supposed to be the same note. I'm not super musically trained, but I can tell that's not the same
We
note.
were actually practicing for this workshop at my house, and I haven't played this in a little while, and I was like, I think I'm playing the right thing, but that does not sound right. And we switched it out, and I was like, oh, okay, we found the problem.
So because she's playing the melody, she gets the better bell. That's how we've always done it. Not that you can tell I'm on the harmony side, so it's not that obvious.
And then the other big thing is, because we play these bells at performances all the time, these are such an interesting thing to wandering eyes, that we have to be very careful. Very often, we should have actually thought to ring the bell tables. We have two covers for our bell tables. We have one that's a really thick, what's the fabric on that?
It's basically fleece.
Yeah, and it covers the whole thing. And then we have like
that one is like it's like a duck canvas, and then we have the fleece on top.
And then we have a fleece so that it muffles the sound as you bring the bells down. But it's nice because when we have the two layers, when we're not playing, we can pull.
We pull up. Keeps them out of the sun, but it also keeps them away from curious hands and eyes.
We've had lots of people try and come and buy bells from us as though we are.
And people walk up to be like, oh, neat!
Look at this
musical
instead of don't drop it.
So
yeah, that's our taking care of situation. As far as planning a number, I mean, everything we have, and we have like these cards like this. I mean, these are original Betty Heyman creations. So I didn't create any of this, but I know like when you take a song, it's basically you just take the notes of the song.
yeah, you're just gonna take the melody, you're gonna split them in half. You find your melody, you find your harmony, and then you want to simplify it because our voices and accordions can move. I mean, you're just moving fingers, but you can't play the bells as fast as you play the button box or move your voice. So you want to make sure that you're simplifying it. For example, on the harmony card that I was playing, which is the one on your handout, right? I'm just hitting the simplified harmony notes. I'm not real good at the musical terms here, but just simplify it so that you're not trying to hit every note. You just can't move that fast.
And I want to say, just to call out another person who's not totally paying attention, Heidi Brown back there. She's Heidi Brown. So we were practicing for our after our motion last night. Usually we have a shared bell ringer and singer, and there's only one person. But we decided to do 2 bell ringers and 2 singers. Well, usually at the end there's only 1 bell ringer at the very end when the yodeling is happening. But we wanted to add another harmony, and so Heidi, who's a phenomenal singer, came and said, "Oh, we can figure this out." So she had when Mikey play it, and oh, okay, what note is that? Okay, get that one. And she just put it together by listening to the song on the notes and figuring out what it was, and then it became, what you saw last night. That usually is only played with 1 little part at the end with the bells.
Yeah. Tuning fork and a hammer.
Yeah.
Right, like that's basically. We have one guy in the group that does that for us. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And maybe some heat. He might have to heat it up a little, but yeah, I don't know how he does that.
Because I mean you can take any of these and hit them and turn them into other notes. So yeah, he basically, I think there's a note a very old note into something I found that said, "Tell Greg to turn this into this." Like with the little ones, right? Or like he needs to get this to this note. So yeah, it's very tools, a lot of tools.
It's definitely not an easy thing to do. I wish we could explain it more. We have one guy that does it, Greg, and we don't want that to have to happen.
Yeah,
so don't
that's
drop the
bell. Careful who's carrying the table. So we were going up on the stage last night. Like, please be very careful. Yeah. So once you have it, we have, and if you have the handout, you'll see how our cards look. I do not read staffs and things. I don't read music. I memorize everything and I know the songs. And that's the key to what it is, was someone like me who doesn't play any other instrument besides singing and bells, it's notes. It's just, these are the letters you're going to play, and here's the song. So the key is you have to know the way the song sounds, because otherwise I can hold this C. Well, I'm going to actually play it because I know the song. But, if I can play these in whatever way I want, but the melody is what tells you how long do I hold each note? How do I flow them into each other? Is it more staccato at this point? Her card says E, 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 E. You have to know what that's supposed to sound like.
So figure it out for yourself. That's how we were taught, because that's how Betty came up with it, because she's our mastermind for the bells for sure. But if you decide you're going to put it on, staffs, or use musical notes to help you, whether it's a full note, half note, quarter, what have you, if you want to write staccato or something, find what works best for you and your people. This is how we were taught, so this is what works for us, because that's how we were trained on it. But knowing the melody is definitely the key to pulling somebody in, so they know, oh yeah, do, that way they know when they have to change. We'll tell you a couple tricks later about when you pick up the wrong bell. But what to do when you do that? Wrong bell, but I know I have a note here and whatnot, right?
And when we first practiced number from last night, we didn't have Michael there for our accompaniment. So I literally just sat while Jessie was learning it, and I just sang it because so that she could hear what it sounded like, and that's what you have to do. And then the other thing, so once you have these notes, the biggest thing and probably the hardest thing I think for putting together is the alignment of where everything goes. And the key is, Betty was always about making everything look $1 million show perfect. And so you want to not cross your hands as much. So she, you'll notice I go down the row and I come back, so as little hand crossing as possible. And it takes a lot of practice of where does this go? Oh, this seems easier for me to get to that one in a faster way. So it's kind of a lot of guess and check. And then once you have it, it's all there. But you see what order are my notes going in? How can I lay this out so I can just move along the row? Because it also helps with the muscle memory. It's a lot more instinctual if it's just I'm going to the next one.
And they don't have to be in music note order. Sometimes we are, because we are kind of playing scales. But in the number I played last night, I have, instead of along, I have pairs. And it's because otherwise I would go this, and you can't move as fast. Again, simplify everything. And so therefore, instead with the pairs, I can just have to cross a little bit if I have to. It's not going to move as fast if the time runs and pretzels.
The other thing to know about when you're planning it is what accompaniment you want. Generally, we have an accordion that plays with us. Last night we also had a guitar we practice, I mean, you can play with just a guitar, but that's up to you. See, what do you want with it? Because that also really helps with the pace of the bell ringers to keep that going. It keeps you moving along, keeps the melody at the right pace.
It makes up for also the fact that, again, you can't play every note most of the time. So you want to, you're covering that a little bit, helping people to recognize melody if they can hear that in the accompaniment as well.
I guess we get all that.
Yeah, we do know.
So then you get to play, actual play, right? So the biggest, one of the things that, first things I was taught was how to actually hold it. That when you hold it, you want to, because you're moving quickly, you need to be able to move between them quickly. So when I hold it, it's actually more of a pinch. It's not a full on like this, because when I grab it, that way I can grab. It also, it muffles the sound less because you're touching the bell as little as possible. Like that, I can do that, so pinching it. One of my pro tips of when we used to do August-Toberfest, we're playing 2 days of shows, and I'm playing bells all day, and I learned this from Diana, a previous bell ringer, was I actually put little clear band-aids around this knuckle because I have no idea why, but that knuckle, and already today, I've been playing it once, it scratches against it, and by the end of 2 days, you've got nice big blisters on your knuckles. So there's a pro tip where those clear ones that nobody can see the band-aid, you put it on there, and then you don't have any rubbing it up. So
that pinch grip is also nice for, I've got tiny fingers and I can put my whole hand through here, but I've got to be able to then get my fingers out, right? So you're moving faster if you're pinching. And like you said, less of the muffle, so you hear the clear note.
And the other big thing, and I know all of my ladies will understand this, was you want to avoid the arm jiggle. Now my shirt is very tight today, so you can't see it. My first show I performed this at, we went back and watched the video, and then it was like, look at your arm is jiggling. And it's more, it's all the wrist. So it's not like this, it's just straight wrist. So you don't get anything going on here. But it also, it just looks cleaner, it looks prettier. But yeah, so everything is just the wrist.
Right.
It's just in the wrist.
If you're just doing that, you're not getting that. Because it doesn't matter how strong your arms are, you hold it in a certain way and we all get the jiggle. And maybe other people don't notice, but we notice that about ourselves. You'll notice it in the video, right? And yeah, just having that little, and you're not seeing any jiggle. And sometimes with the lace on the blouses makes it more obvious that you're jiggling, right? And you still get that crisp, clear note, but not with the jiggle.
Yeah. And then I'm trying to think other things about playing it. Again, you really don't want to muffle the sounds. You don't definitely want to. That doesn't get you anything. That's what that grip really comes in there. And really, I always do this when I go up because you get sweaty. And also, as you learn to play it more, you really get to get the notes down first. It's really a lot of muscle memory with it. I don't know if you saw. I came up here when I first did it. I always do this. I don't even play the whole thing. I just move my hands in the way they're going to go, and I make sure I hear the notes. I find that when I play some of our other songs and I actually think about it, I screw it up. And I've been playing these numbers for 10 years. So you really have to let your body know. And that's the importance of having laid out really nicely. And once you have that, you start to see, especially with something like this where you saw we were both playing together, you kind of have to move together. There's a note where she comes over here, but it also helps you move between to have that, and it also looks pretty. But having a little bit of motion between moving from one weight of your foot to the other, it has a nice. I guess we didn't really say that there are 2 different formations in this. So this one we played one set of bells. Usually, this is one of the few, I think.
We'll probably play a third where we have to share bells, I think. A third of our numbers we'll probably share.
Sure. I don't know. Yes,
yeah.
Probably you're right. But there are ones as well where we have 2 separate ones. Like last night
we had separate
had
sets.
2. And so sometimes, like one of our numbers, I have my set, she has her set. Sometimes we have one number where the lines, because they're both long lines, one is here and one is here. And that is what comes to our next step, is you have to put back the bell where it came from. Because you're not, once you've learned it, you're not actually looking at the notes. You're looking at, again, the muscle memory. So when you don't put it back, it can cause lots of problems.
Especially if you're sharing, like we did in this one. We share these 2. Do you play a G2? Oh, we share these 3 bells. So she uses it, and I pick it up next, and if it's not there, we're screwed.
ridiculous. I was kind of proud of myself that masterful work on that one because I was playing and rearranging the bells at the same time.
We do have numbers in which we have to move bells, so it's not like you don't have to. For example, last night in our number, we played the melody and the harmony there, and then we played the yodel. And during the yodel, they yodeled for a moment, and then Jesse and I reset our bells because we get rid of half of them and we only play 5 for the yodel, and so those are the only 5 we need, but they're from the whole line. So we just move them to where we need, and then do that. I know that there's another number where I grab a bell and I bring it as I walk to this side because then I got to play this set. But she played it earlier. It is, again, trying to figure out what's the layout with what can we do with the number of bells we have. We have a lot of bells, but we don't have 7 of each bell. But moving the bells is okay. Just make sure if you have to have them in a certain spot. In a certain spot.
And you'll even see, like, I played the same thing twice, and even after I've played it the first time, there's a little bit of interlude, and I sit and put them back.
Yeah.
Because when you naturally put them down, they're crooked. But you just, real quick, you just do that, and then, even between playing one verse and another, just rearrange them again, so that they're back where you were in the first original part.
On that muscle memory. She was talking about how sometimes she'll set up her bells and just do. Seeing as, you might have several bell ringers in your group like we do. We only have the 2 things of bells and they're not like perfectly separate sets or whatever, and either that our bell numbers work out that way. But a way for you to have somebody practice their bell number at home without having the bells is what I do. Is just use like sticky notes or index cards, and I put the note on there, and I put them where they're supposed to be, and I tack them. And that's how I practice my bell number. It's a great way for starting on the layout of your bell number as well. Instead of having to worry about ringing them and figuring out the melody, well, if I'm tapping them and I have to cross a million times, that's too many crossing. So let's move this one here. Does that work better for me? I prefer to do it that way when I first learn one, because it's just a little less to do, that way, because I don't want to worry about listening to it first, I want to touch it first, does that make sense?
Whereas when I like to do it, I do like to hear, I don't have to hear the whole thing, but like I hear the notes so I know, okay, I'm doing it right. And it's like real quick, I just real quick go through it, and that way I hear, okay, everything's, that also helps me make sure that I set the bells up correctly, because that's also happened where just natural human error, you don't realize until you get up there and you're playing the right muscle memory, but it is not sounding correct. So once really the first part is learning those notes, getting a muscle memory so you know what order to play everything in. And then once you have that is where you put those finishing touches on it. You want to just not have it sound like a bunch of notes, it needs to sound like a song. So you have the more flow you get. Yeah, you want to be able to go, one note should end and the next one should start right after it. And that's the ideal situation. It also lets you know, again, which ones are you holding a little bit longer, because you would be holding that note longer if you were singing it. And that, it just creates more of a full song out of it and not just a bunch of cowbells playing notes.
For example, the card that's in your, on your handout, right, the one that I played, I played the high E like 6 times, right? But I could play. But that sounds terrible, doesn't it? Right, I'm holding out the note. You can't really hold the bell, but that holds out the note. It adds to the flow. And from there, right, it's kind of like a flick forward. From there, I'm flowing into the next note, and as opposed to that super staccato sound. We want it to sound like a put together piece. Like when you're singing, you are flowing your notes in together. When you're playing your button box, you're flowing them together.
Yeah, and we have like at least one number where the audience knows the song, and so the more you can make it sound like the actual song they've heard, the more pleasure they get out of it.
Yeah.
They sing it, oh, absolutely.
Like Schneebalter last night. How many of us were singing along to it? Whoop, and all of that, right? Good to say it. Absolutely.
So it just adds to it. And then of course, the chemistry too, I forgot. That was a big thing. Again, all of this I think back to when I was first trained 10 years ago by Betty, the chemistry. You had to have it's nice here when you're first learning it, but the more you can look at each other, oh yes, we're having fun. Or there's some parts where I play first and she'll come up and she'll stand back and it's like, again, that's the finishing touch. Once you actually both know the bells, you gotta know the notes first. And then once you get there and you're more comfortable, you do that.
Absolutely.
And of course, the last thing, of course, and we didn't do it, but you throw in a Gaufest where you can. We have certain ones where it's almost like a joke. Betty came for so long. There's certain notes.
Yes.
It's like it's a part of the song now in our heads.
She had a very specific Gaufest. I don't know if you ever had it, which is and there are certain bell numbers where we all know when that Gaufest comes. So what are you playing or does it?
Yeah.
So if she's not playing it with us anymore, then one of us will do it because that is part of the song.
And she does still every once in a while. She comes out. But
so we kind of put it all together for you. But what if you make a mistake? So I'll call myself out. I did a few mistakes last night. I put a bell in the wrong place and I picked it up and I was like, well, that's not the right note. So some tricks of the trade for what to do when you pick up the wrong bell. Silent ringing. Right? The audience is hearing the accompaniment. Remember, hides multitude of sins. Right? They don't hear me not playing the wrong note, right? They see me ringing it, finding the right note, right? They don't know. Right? So how to kind of, and then I was a theater major. One of my theater teachers was like, look, this is the theater. Smile, fake, right? If the audience doesn't know you've made a mistake, they don't. If you smile in your face, that's the wrong note. What am I doing? Oh, there's the right note, right? Just hide it, right?
and that's what like there have been times when I at the beginning of the line I screwed up and I'm like, I'm just gonna wait and I'm back.
Yep.
Like you just look down at your card and say, oh crap, where am I? And you pick right back up. You go to that next line of notes. You say, okay, now I'm back on it. But it's the show must go on. The show must go on.
And I mean, many of us, a bunch of us have bells. I'm sure we'll play a lot of the same songs. But what does mean we play it the same way? So even, just like with our clappers, we all do them a little differently. So you make a mistake, everybody else doesn't know you made a mistake. You're like, we just do, we have our own styles. So nobody's out there knowing. In fact, I'm sure people in our group don't know we made mistakes because not everybody plays bells. They don't know. She might not notice that I make a mistake. Again, just smile and
That's where you
exactly. Just that'll hide the wrong note. No one will know. That's right. Right, and it's louder than the bell. We're gonna go.
We had a clapper fall out of one of our bells. My daughter's playing the bells, and she just rang that clapper's bell like that's exactly what. And the audience do it, and they didn't care. They laughed their head. That's all.
It's like we had, it's not a bell number, but we played at a show once where the power went out in the middle of Valentine's, right? Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and the whole group just started singing.
It's one of my favorite Washingtonia moments of all time. Because it was the beginning of the song, without a beat, everyone just started singing and we did the whole thing.
You never know. You never know. Of course, the lights kind of went out onto the tent, but otherwise, I'm sure the audience was like, well, that was a neat way to do that. Right? They don't know.
Yeah, and I was gonna say along those lines, we have these little cards at the bottom of some of the things. They're so we have had it where you get the bells out and you don't realize the card is just stuck itself up there. So you go to ring it and you're like, it's not making any noise, and then you see like, oh, there's a paper in there.
We also have some young guys in the group who like to play with our bells and stuff like leaves in them. So when you take the bell up and then stuff falls out. So it's not a bad idea to check your bells right before you.
If you have a ring, sir. Yeah. So
If you have some stickers, like
I think everybody does. Yeah. So I mean that's how we do our bells.
Do you have any questions before we kind of put it all back together for you to play? Yeah.
What's the logic for laying out the card?
Because it's just figuring out you want to cross your hands.
Yeah, so I'm looking at that.
Right, so-
I just know from our bell ringer, it's totally different.
And you know what works for you works for you. There's definitely not a right way. So we have up top. This is the whole setup of the bells. Is this thing here? Right? This is the part that you guys are looking at.
With me, and her setup is completely different.
Okay.
So we have at top in a box, usually double-lined box. That's what the bell setup looks like. And then these are the notes. And we also tell ourselves what hand to start with. Like this one says L hand, it means left. Left hand. So we know. And there's most of the time, I think we start hard. It was just a simpler bell, or simpler notes to follow, so we thought we would show you that one.
And you'll also see there's line underscores where she has to hold.
That's silence for me.
Yeah.
Not fake silence, but like silence. You know, and we might write repeat or move bell or something. We write ourselves notes. Do what you need to do to make sense for you.
I just wanted to know the logic, because I wasn't very about
Right, like,
that.
you're gonna have to switch
Yeah,
right
perfect.
to left hand.
Yeah.
To hold the.
Oh yeah, so you've got your L's for left hand, exactly. And I'm assuming this is your setup.
Yes, that's
See?
your setup.
Awesome.
Yeah, and that's where you'll see
Ours are just handwritten because this card might be 30
I
years
got the
old.
order today, and we were taking out a bunch of new bell ringers, and I was like, well, why don't I create a document so that we don't have to write it like that?
We literally laminated, well, it was laminated last week for the first time.
I don't know why.
Yeah, there was another question.
Yeah, we have one set of bells and we literally share the set of bells. We have two sets? We do not have any bells.
Oh, I can't answer to you how many. Mike, how many bells, how many sets of bells do you know?
Two.
We have
Two oranges, but it's like one long set. So it's really cross one.
Yeah.
So how do you do like the melody and the harmony? Because
Can
we
you-
know the songs that we looked at and it's like,
This is two full
full
sets?
sets.
Two full sets.
And then there's some extra bells that was purchased along.
Okay, we have two sets. He says there are also a couple of extras. Now, like I said, we do have notes where like that bell got dropped and it was never going to go back to the note of that, so it got moved to another note. But is it possible that instead your harmony can play like a higher or a lower octave instead of the main one? That's maybe I'm saying that as somebody who's not musically trained. That'd be like a tiny question.
In one song we play, the harmonies more fixed.
Okay. Yeah.
Melodies and songs. So, but there are times when we have to cross over or use the same note.
Yeah, so we do that. You'll see that in here. And maybe what we do is we move this so they can see us. Yeah, switch the bells. But we do. We in this number we show you we play these three bells together. You know, and I don't know. I think is our only. Oh, it's the good G.
Some of them, yeah.
I wonder if we created this one because we only had one set at that time. I'm not sure. But you know, maybe change the layout so that it works. Having them in notes.
I'm interested in how you have it right there. I mean,
And that's on the card that you see us. That's this here. And
Yeah, if you come back here and we move these away, you're welcome.
absolutely. Any other questions?
Hey, Kristin. I got one comment. When you're buying your sets of bells, make sure you buy it from the same manufacturer.
Yes.
Because they all have a little different tones to them. And that's the problem we've had when we lost bells, is to find something to replace them. These bells are probably about 40, 50 years old, if not older. So it's hard to. And I know Procter and Pullman, at least the last time I checked, they had bells for sale on their website.
They still have the bells, but they have a little bit of a back
Do you have a
order.
question, sir?
I'm sorry?
They still have bells, but they have a little bit of a back order. They're looking almost
Oh,
6
do they?
weeks.
Okay.
Mike, we had a question up here. Well, where do we get them? He said Procter and Pullman has them. And do you remember how much those ones cost? I mean, ours are like 50 years old, so who knows? But you know how much they were for Pullman?
No, I don't know.
2,000?
I want to say somewhere around, last time I checked, around $300.
Oh, okay, I was wrong. Wow. I told you there were thousands of dollars because I don't want to touch them. Okay, $300.
It depends on the octave.
Maybe. Yeah, Tess.
So our bells sometimes, I guess if they're old, the clapper will get like stuck.
Yes.
Do y'all have either a fix for that or like a stage, like quick fix?
So again, it's checking my bells before I do. Definitely on the bigger bells and usually on my C's, they do like get themselves tucked. Maybe it'll come free, but maybe it won't. And so a lot of times, also because we have people that stick stuff up there, I do make sure that they're loose on the big bells. It doesn't usually happen in my little ones, but yeah, I always make sure the big bells are loose before I play them. And it's just part of the setup too.
Yeah, if you do that really strong, if you're having a nice strong turn, it should, if it is still a little stuck, like, yeah, if you check it beforehand, it should be good, but it's getting a little bit, that's why that nice strong, like, ring.
Oh, I don't know, that might work, the graphite. The problem is it just kind of jams itself to one side sometimes. There it is, right? Like it'll just kind of jam itself in. And usually it's just how, if it got packaged in and it shuffled some and it just kind of stuck itself up there, so. But yeah, I always check G and C, always.
Just so you know, we got the pad here. Amsleaf sells a set. It looks like it's a double set to me. 2 octave, or it's 2 octaves. $900.
Don't buy
Okay.
it. Don't buy it. I bought 2 octaves for $500 from a manufacturer in Austria about 2018.
There you go.
Oh, yes. And there's also a manufacturer that takes
I certainly, we've never done any of that. Maybe you could. I kind of like the patina, but
Yeah, I think we've talked about it, but it's kind of like, it adds a little mysterious, I don't know, it's a little history to it that it doesn't look new.
and you can definitely tell where's the, like, here's a new one versus some of the older ones. But no, we don't usually worry about that. As long as they sound great, besides those E's we have right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, any other questions? Our parade needs to leave here in a moment, so we'd love to play for you. Yeah.
Any benefits to the size? So if you buy a set that's large, something that I have.
There's no.
It's higher and lower.
Yeah. So like
I
here's.
just want to know, like, what is your preference? Like when you listen to a song, should I go for the small, the medium, or the large?
I mean, I think you want to have a mix of that because you want it to go up and soft to go up and down.
Yeah.
That kind of.
So you'll take an A from the big or an A from the small. That's kind of the plan.
I mean, we play a big and a little, but it's just how do I? If you get the robustness of the song there, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to just having.
You're gonna pitch.
Yes. And then if we're playing that full scale.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. If you go for large, you stay.
No. We
Or
play.
you're like, wow, I would really like to hear that B.
Yes, right. Otherwise, it gets boring if we're just playing the same 3 notes. We want to get a little bit more. I don't know how robust is kind of the sound of it. Not boring. Yeah. You know, that complete sound. All right. Mike.
One thing that I want to caution people about tuning the bell, say you drop a bell and it cracks on the side, if you go and resolder it may change the note.
Yeah.
And also, there's no exact science on that because you either bend the bell a little bit or you take a hacksaw and take a little bit off. You want to do it in small increments because, again, you may change the note of that bell or the sound of that bell. So there's no, what I want to say, you can't go into a website. I've checked a number of times and it's hard to find on how to tune a bell. You can use a regular tuner, but it's sometimes you just have to buy new bells.
Can I ask you, you see the slots up the side.
Right.
And if you saw them, are you raising or lowering the tone?
That I don't know because I'm not the musician. I got a tuner there and because we avoid dropping the bells and stuff like that.
I know,
So
and you can rebend them a bit sometimes,
Yeah.
and then it's.
It's a brass or bronze?
Huh?
No, it's made of brass or bronze?
Yeah, it's brass.
Yeah.
I think they're an alloy actually. Brass or something else.
That's what you're saying for hacksaw. Same song, yes, sir.
Somehow I moved down a bit, right? I don't actually know the song.
No, that's the. Are you sure? Move it this way. Fake bell. I promise I will make at least one mistake, and hopefully you don't notice. So the cheesy smile on no matter what. That's what took the mask off. and they have no idea. And even if they catch the mistake, everybody's human, not robots. We didn't press play on the jukebox. Like, we played them for you live and in person, and we make mistakes.
And like I said, as soon as I knew I went into the wrong line, I was like, I know the next, because I skipped a line. That's what I did. So I just waited for the next line and then get back on.
We have just a few moments. We're good, thank you. Do you any other questions now that you've seen it all put together? Absolutely.
Just curious how you introduce them, like how do you explain,
Our MC usually talks about, where the bells come from, right? History of them, cows, right? All the different notes, which cow is missing.
And then they started hearing the music as they were listening to the cows, and not the cows, but as they were hearing it, they started hearing the music and what was going on, and they decided to say, oh, we can turn that into music ourselves.
Right.
So that's generally is that right, Mr. MC?
We have it down. And then also, if while we're still getting microphones set up sometimes, we also like to explain, okay, this song is called Kuglok and Echo, which means we're echoing each other with our Kuglok and Cowbells, right? We always have to explain the German to the crowd a lot of time. We have other ones that are out there going, right, in the fields, meadows, and, talking about the beautiful life out there, the wide open.
We have My Lawn, which, essentially we say dedicated to all people that, have come over and have come from their own country.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if this was asked before, but where would you get the music for them?
So we just, for the most part, finding traditional songs, right? We play Edelweiss. This is just, like, Glocking Echo. I have no idea where that one came from. But, just finding that song, and then you're going to part out the melody and the harmony and simplify for the notes you can physically get through.
So you have to do it yourself.
We did, yes. And by we, I mean mostly Betty Hayden.
So,
I'm going to give her that credit.
do you take like sheet music from a song that you know, like Edelweiss, and then pick up the
Yeah, you
notes
absolutely
that way?
Yeah, you can look at the notes that are being
Because
played.
there is no sheet music for
Well,
bells.
no.
Yeah.
Not that I know of, no. Yeah.
Do you, because you were partly playing, first and second voice, as Swedish Stimme there, do you actually, I have a couple of arrangements for bass patterns also. Do you mix those in with a melody and a bass pattern?
Typically our accordion plays the bass for us.
Okay.
And we just play that harmony and the melody. And typically what we do is we do split the harmony and melody. Melissa is one of our lead, well, she is the lead bell player, so she usually plays the melody. And those of us who are newer to it play the harmony so we can kind of follow along. If I make a mistake, it's less important. We have a few where we have, because of the set of bells, there isn't a set harmony and melody. We are playing those notes, but not individually.
Between the two of us.
And you're playing one set.
Today, this one we played one set. If you saw us at Heimatabend, we had two separate sets, and therefore we didn't have to share any bells, Jesse and I. Absolutely. Yeah.
I brought my bells when I play Edelweiss.
I can play Edelweiss with my bells. I have that one up.
I don't have that.
I did it as a solo at our most recent show, so.
But I mean, that's always like a classic hit, right?
And it's the one that everybody starts singing along. All of a sudden you see all the cameras come out,
Yeah, we do it explicitly as a single, and we have our bell player play for once, and then we lead the crowd.
Yeah, love it. Oh, I love that one.
So I can freely submit this to anybody else who wants to do it.
Oh yeah. And our Mike usually says that if you recognize the song, sing along. Like that.
And we want to reiterate too, like, this is just how we do it because this is how we were shown. There is no right way to do it. If you've got something that works for you, please by all means do it. If you have people who are much more musically trained than we are, and you can read it off a staff as you play, you're amazing. And also, do it that way. That works for you. We just do letters because that's what we're better at.
And if you have any questions on the handout, my email is at the bottom of the handout. Please feel free to send me an email. Like I said, I did not create this. I learned it, and
You can reach out to us on Facebook too,
Yeah,
Messenger, and all
absolutely.
Washingtonia. Mike, Melissa, and myself are all on that, so if you message about that, we can answer that too.
And if anybody wants to
Hello.
know,
Can I just throw in a couple things about the bells here? A couple of things there. For the bells numbers that they're doing, some of you that are in Trachtenvereine, there is a standard bell Untitled Chapter that we do, I don't know if they mentioned that at all, which is separate from it. You all have heard the melody. Ba, 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 ba. It's a very easy melody. That's one option. If you want to take it back to your Trachtenverein and try to integrate it into your repertoire as the Untitled Chapter is a really nice way to do that. We also have resources we can show you how to do that. In our group, we actually have the men playing the bell, right?
Yeah, there's 4 men that each have 2 bells. They sing it, or they play it, and then they do their thing. Yeah.
However, in Austria, they go all out, and a couple of the more common things here, the melodies that they're talking about, our great Betty Heyman came up with a lot of them, but there are many standard melodies that you'll see. Every Schuhplattler group likes to go off with their favorite song and take their own melodies. Edelweiss tends to be not as common, but what tends to be very common in Austria is, believe it or not, you're going to laugh at this, in Weißen Rüssel. A lot of the groups take that. Or in Salzkammergut, they made that into bell numbers. And individual Tirol, especially in Tyrol, they will take like Hoch Tirol and they will turn that into a bell number. They do some really creative things. So as I said, find the bell number that works for you, knowing that you have flexibility, especially in Austria, even in Allgäu. They love their cowbells in Allgäu too. So there's a little flexibility down there too.
To be honest, I think a lot of the yodels we can turn into bells too, because
Sure.
you're not using a whole lot of words, it's notes, right? And like we had the yodel last night, right? And you're just laying those notes around. Listen to that yodel and try to use that, especially because a lot of them are Zweitsong.
Steiner Lied is a very easy one that you could yodel, and an easy one that you could do with the bells. Just the way they're set up. These guys have it mastered. They're pretty awesome. So.
Thanks. Thanks, Adam.